Resident Evil has so many playable protagonists that we here at the Leaderboard thought we'd break them all down in one video. Just some quick ground rules. We'll include characters from spin-offs and DLC that offer new scenarios and perspectives, but don't expect to see characters from anything that's not canon. In other words, no Gaiden, Operation Raccoon City, the mercenary modes, ghost survivors, etc. Sorry Tofu fans. And I know, some people argue that Umbrella Corps is canon, but just no, I gotta put my foot down. I refuse to believe that's canon. Chris Redfield. Chris is like the ultimate soldier. He never complains, he has inhuman boulder-punching strength, and his lack of personality doesn't get in the way of missions. Chris is a member of STAR's Alpha Team, and somehow survives the mansion incident while exposing pharmaceutical company Umbrella and his leader Wesker. After briefly investigating Umbrella in Europe, he chases after his sister Claire on Rockford Island. He rescues her and thwarts the Ashfords and Wesker for the second time in Antarctica. He puts the final nail in Umbrella's coffin after leading an assault on their Siberian base. Chris then helps create the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance and squashes the Queen Zenobia T. Abyss fiasco, even with his partner Jessica being a traitor. She's no Jill Valentine. Unfortunately, he then loses his original partner in another Spencer mansion before rescuing her the following year and preventing an epidemic out of West Africa. He blows Wesker to smithereens once and for all, and eventually saves the entire world from the sea virus outbreak alongside Piers NIVANS. We last see Chris helicoptering into the bayou and taking down Lucas Baker. Jill Valentine. She's a master of unlocking and goes great with lettuce and mayo. Jill Valentine starts out strong as the ultra-resourceful bomb disposal expert and young member of STAR's Alpha Team. As the only truly capable force other than Chris, she exposes Umbrella during the mansion incident. But, unlike her partner, Jill stays in Raccoon City during its infamous outbreak, forcing her to fight off the STAR's stalking nemesis. With help from Carlos Oliveira and Barry BIRKIN, Jill manages to escape before the city is completely obliterated. Jill goes on to fully take down Umbrella in Siberia. Then, after founding the BSAA, she prevents the Queen Zenobia T. Abyss incident at sea from getting out of hand alongside Chris. Unfortunately, while Jill and Chris are on a mission to take down Oswell Spencer, Wesker captures her. She's tragically turned into a blonde, mind-controlled slave, unleashing the nasty plague like Ouroboros on West Africa before being saved by Chris and escaping with other BSAA agents. Leon Kennedy. Rocking the classic coif, we have the ever-celibate Leon Kennedy. This suave blonde makes his debut as a rookie cop in Resident Evil 2, defying all odds and surviving the Raccoon City outbreak alongside Claire Redfield, Sherry Birkin, and Hunk. He successfully evades the stalking Mr. X and constantly mutating William Birkin. After thwarting a T. Veronica BOW plot in South America as a US Stratcom agent, Leon uses his extensive survival knowledge to finagle a position with the US Secret Service as the personal bodyguard for President Graham and his daughter, Ashley. When Ashley gets kidnapped, Leon rushes to Spain to rescue her, toppling Los Eliminados with his old muse, Ada Wong. Years later, when the sea virus outbreak occurs, Leon is forced to euthanize an infected President Benford before he and HELENA HARPER fight through an infected college town. The duo fight their way all the way to China, where Leon destroys Derek Simmons and foils his plan to take over the world. Oh, and he was in a handful of movies too. We covered that cinematic trilogy in our Leon Kennedy timeline. Claire Redfield. This biker chick chooses the wrong time to check in on her brother Chris in Raccoon City. It's a good thing she's there though. She teams up with Leon, and she rescues the innocent Sherry Birkin while helping take down the little girl's monstrous G-virus-infected father. Once she escapes Raccoon, Claire tries to track down her brother in France. But, after blowing up a bunch of Umbrella agents in 90s action movie fashion, she gets captured and sent to Rockford Island. Here, she has to overcome another zombie outbreak, then fly to Antarctica with Steve Burnside, the whiniest travel partner ever. She defeats Alexia Ashford and Albert Wesker alongside her brother, and mitigates the potential global devastation of the T. Veronica virus. Claire later achieves gainful employment at TerraSave, a biohazard protection agency, alongside MOIRA Burton. They get kidnapped and taken to another island, a recurring theme for Claire, but fight their way through and foil the schemes of Alex Wesker. Oh, and she was in a movie too, kicking ass at an airport. Albert Wesker. Wesker is the founder and leader of STARS, who simultaneously helps develop the T-Virus and its mutations within Umbrella. He lures most of his pet police team to their deaths during the mansion incident, but overestimates his control over the BOW tyrant and gets impaled. Fortunately for him, he injects himself with a mutant strain of T-Virus, thus gaining zombie powers, and escapes before the Spencer mansion explodes. Wesker goes on to work behind the scenes, using Ada Wong to collect samples of the G-Virus and Las Plagas. Meanwhile, he heads to Rockford Island as well as Antarctica himself to collect T. Veronica samples, only to run into the Redfield siblings. He ultimately betrays Umbrella, turning over evidence of their BOW EU involvement to the United States after storming their Siberian base. After assassinating Oswald Spencer, Wesker kidnaps Jill Valentine and experiments on her to both test and develop the Ouroboros virus. He's a bit too overzealous with his actions in West Africa though, and he attracts the attention of the BSAA and his nemesis, Chris. Even infecting himself with Ouroboros isn't enough to stop Wesker's demise via 2 RPGs to the face inside of a volcano. Rebecca Chambers. The youngest member of STARS and a highly skilled medic, Rebecca Chambers is the only survivor of Bravo Team. She's only 18, but despite her age, this genius keeps her head clear throughout crazy situations. Seriously, she survives through 2 infested mansions over 2 consecutive nights. First, she teams up with escaped convict Billy COEN, investigating a train and school chock full of T-virus leeches. They eventually reach an Umbrella research facility where they find Umbrella co-founder James Marcus as the Queen Leech. Then they blow him to smithereens. The next night, she aids Chris and Jill. Frankly, they do most of the legwork in the mansion incident, but Rebecca earned herself the breather. Besides, Umbrella Chronicles showed that she did far more than just stay idle during her time off screen. Billy COEN. Billy COEN was a 2nd Lieutenant Marine whose strong moral fiber led to his demise. In 1997, while intervening in an African civil war, Billy refused to open fire on a village full of civilians. He was subdued and the villagers were massacred anyway, but to cover up this heinous crime, his compatriots threw him under the bus. Sentenced to death, Billy lucks out when his military transport gets derailed by a pack of zombie dogs. All he has to do for sweet freedom is survive against James Marcus and a T-virus outbreak alongside Rebecca Chambers. After they succeed, Billy disappears to never be heard from again. Carlos Oliveira. Carlos had a rough childhood, growing up in South America surrounded by violence as a guerrilla fighter. This desensitization probably explains his good humor as he fights in the Raccoon City outbreak as a mercenary for Umbrella and their UBCS mercenary forces. Carlos is a heavy weapons expert, and he and Jill take turns saving each other from the stalking nemesis. But Carlos's greatest achievement has to be rushing to a nearby hospital to help Jill after she's infected with the T-virus. The two are saved by Barry BIRKIN, who helicopters in during the midnight hour. Steve Burnside. Whiny Leonardo DiCaprio wannabe, Steve is known for his dual-wielding shooting style and coming on way too strong. Still, it's hard not to feel bad for him. His mother was killed, and he was imprisoned because his father betrayed Umbrella. Steve even has to execute a zombie version of his own dad within Rockford. He helps save Claire's hide on a few occasions before becoming infected himself with the T. Veronica virus. He professes his love for Claire kinda out of nowhere before dying and leaving us players alone forever. Ashley Graham. Because she's the daughter of the United States President, Ashley Graham gets kidnapped by Los Illuminados and whisked away to Spain. I'm guessing she had a pretty sheltered upbringing, but she's surprisingly resourceful. Although Leon meets up with her pretty quickly, she still has to accompany him through Los Illuminados' village, castle, and island. Ashley frequently gets separated from her savior and left to fend for herself. Hiding is what she does best, but she can also throw lamps and dodge suits of armor with the best of them. Jack KRAUSER. An accomplished US SOCOM agent, Jack was chosen to accompany Leon Kennedy in 2002 on a mission to South America. They had to stop Javier Hidalgo from unleashing T-Virus and T-Veronica monsters upon the world. Unfortunately, Jack's arm is injured during the mission, ending his military career. He joins with Wesker, believing he can regain his power, and becomes a tool for Los Illuminados. He kidnaps Ashley Graham for Lord Sadler and tries to kill Leon during an epic knife fight. Eventually, KRAUSER gets killed by his former comrade. SHEVA ALOMAR. SHEVA grew up with a rough childhood. Umbrella kinda massacred her whole family and community to cover up their BOW research in the area. She was later picked up and raised by guerrilla forces who she kinda betrayed to the US because they wanted to buy bioweapons from Umbrella. At least she guaranteed amnesty for her innocent comrades. After earning US citizenship, SHEVA joined the BSAA to continue her lifelong fight against bioweapons as revenge against Umbrella. She's the perfect partner and guide for Chris as they thwart Wesker and his Ouroboros plans in the Kijuju area of West Africa. Josh Stone. West Africa BSAA agent Josh Stone has quite the history with SHEVA ALOMAR. He trained her, and she's like his little sister. With authority and a cool head, Stone assists his protege and Chris Redfield throughout their mission in Kijuju. Most notably, he helps Jill make her desperate escape, trademark, out of Wesker's headquarters to the helicopter once she breaks free of Wesker's control. He doesn't punch any boulders, but Josh still plays a vital part in preventing a mass Ouroboros outbreak. Ada Wong. When we first meet super spy Ada Wong, she's manipulating poor wide-eyed Leon into getting a G-virus sample in Raccoon City, but we soon see her in a different light. The next time we see her, she's manipulating suave secret agent Leon into getting a Plaga sample in Spain. Hell, even before that, Ada infiltrated the original Arclay lab from RE1, seducing the head researcher, John. Despite working for unsavory characters like Wesker, Ada always seems to redeem herself, aiding Leon blow up monsters like Mr. X, Lord Sadler, and Deborah Harper. Sherry Birkin. Sherry had a pretty rough childhood. Not only did Sherry have to survive the zombie outbreak in Raccoon City, she had to survive her parents' neglect, and evade the clutches of that creepy police chief Irons. Unfortunately, despite escaping her monstrous father and the apocalyptic city with Claire, she still got infected with the G-Virus. Eventually, she gets scooped up and used as a guinea pig for years to develop the C-Virus under the guise of government protection. But as a young adult, she helped save the world from this viral byproduct alongside Jake Muller as a BSAA agent. Jake Muller. Jake Muller is the illegitimate son of Albert Wesker, who, also had a rough childhood, but in Eastern Europe. To support his sick mother, he became a mercenary, learning how to fight alongside the Edonian Liberation Army. With his combat experience and bloodline, he is eventually targeted as a subject to test the C-Virus, quickly building an immunity and sick zombie powers like Dad. At first, he's just willing to sell his blood to the highest bidder, but soon meets up with Sherry Birkin. They're both sick and tired of being guinea pigs, so they use their repressed rage to help save the world. Jake even destroys the Ustanak with a punch to the face. HELENA HARPER. A poor man's Ada Wong, HELENA HARPER is a disgraced CIA agent who shot her sister's unarmed abusive boyfriend and is forced to become a spy. NSA Director Simmons blackmails Helena by using her sister as a bargaining chip, manipulating her into assassinating President Benford. Helena bails at the last moment, but unfortunately, the POTUS ends up with a worse, zombified fate. She still redeems herself by assisting Leon through Tall Oaks and China, saving the world from Dr. Simmons and the C-Virus. PIERS NIVANS. Every Batman needs a Robin, and Chris has his very own unimpressive sidekick in PIERS NIVANS. This military brat quickly rose through the ranks to become an accomplished BSAA operative. He's Chris's right-hand man during the global C-Virus outbreak, but is best remembered for his noble sacrifice. By injecting himself with the virus, PIERS gains the strength to defeat the BOW Chaos. He forces Chris to escape alone before the infection can turn him into more of a monster. Hunk. Hunk is defined by one thing: his uncanny ability to survive. As a mysterious Umbrella Security Service operative, Hunk has a habit of being the lone survivor of ridiculously dangerous missions. He's most known for being the fourth survivor of Raccoon City, following Leon, Claire, and Sherry's escape. After his team assassinates William Birkin, Hunk evades a bevy of monsters throughout the RPD as he escapes via chopper with a G-Virus sample. Parker Luciani. Parker Luciani was a member of the Federal Bioterrorism Commission when Il Vitro launched their attack on Terra Grigia. He somehow managed to survive, and with his battle-hardened survival instinct, he becomes the perfect new partner for Jill within the BSAA. He is absolutely vital to her success in thwarting the T-Abyss virus outbreak and surviving the Queen Zenobia incident. Keith Lumley. Keith Lumley is a good-humored BSAA special agent who earns his own survival stripes during the events of Revelations. He slaughters wave after wave of BOWs in a Finnish airport alongside his partner, Quint Ketchum. Though, at the end of the day, he was really just used as a pawn in BSAA Director O'Brien's overly elaborate plot to help expose FBC Director Morgan Lansdale. Barry Burton. Thanks to his sick beard and Magnum combo, Daddy Barry is the last surviving member of STAR's Alpha Team. Back during the mansion incident, Wesker took Barry's family hostage and forced him to help with his plans. Thankfully, Barry redeems himself by ambushing his slick captain. He goes on to save Jill and Carlos from Raccoon's nuking, barely escaping the blast radius. Years later, he pursues his daughter to Seshestvovani Island, eventually topping Alex Wesker. Moira Burton. When she's not a phenomenal bargaining chip as a hostage, Moira is a TerraSave employee. She's best defined by her initial apprehension towards firearms and unfamiliarity with dangerous situations. But with Claire's guidance, she slowly becomes more of a survivor and fighter and learns to conquer her hesitations, fears, and of course, the nefarious Alex Wesker. NATALIA KORDA. This poor little girl has had, say it with me now, a rough childhood. After surviving the Terra Grigia decimation at the hands of Il Vitro, Natalia is kidnapped and experimented on with the T-Phobos virus. Fortunately, this helps her detect infected monsters, and she uses this skill to aid Barry in his journey to save his real daughter when she's imprisoned on the island of Seshestvovani. Ethan Winters. Many think of Ethan as an everyman, an average Joe compared to the behemoth Chris or the smooth Leon. But Ethan is tough as nails and one hell of a survivor. So tough that he shrugs off injuries such as his multiple stab wounds and his hand being chopped off, by his own wife no less. The heartbreak is the real painful injury. Ethan defies all odds when he outwits the Baker family and Evelyn E-Type's superweapon, surviving his plight through the bayou and rescuing his beloved Mia. Mia Winters. Ethan's doting wife was never as innocent as she appeared. Mia's actually an agent of the shady organization The Connections and the caretaker of superweapon Evelyn. Unfortunately, Evelyn becomes unstable, eventually bonding with and taking control of Mia, crashing the ship that's transporting her. The Baker family finds both Mia and Evelyn washed up in Louisiana, and Evelyn causes their grisly demise. When Mia's lucid and not possessed by Evelyn, she helps Ethan fight through the Baker estate. She and Ethan both survive when they're rescued by Chris Redfield and his new blue umbrella. Zoe Baker. Zoe is the daughter of the nuclear Baker family. Because Zoe won't accept Evelyn's gift of mind control, her family forces her to live as an outcast on the estate. She aids Ethan throughout his escape, but he ultimately chooses to save Mia over her when given the choice. That's the canon choice, at least. I mean, I would choose my wife too, as opposed to a stranger who I just met. Even though Evelyn never controls Zoe, she still infected her. So, without the serum, Zoe succumbs to her infection and basically freezes. Her father, Jack, kidnaps her when she's like this, but her Uncle Joe eventually saves her and cures her. Joe Baker. Uncle Joe Baker is a military veteran who lives an isolationist lifestyle near the rest of his family in Louisiana. This ends up saving him from Evelyn, as he was completely ignorant to the corruption of his family for years. When he finally stumbles upon the chaos of the estate, he uses his fists and sheer brawn to pummel through everything in his way, including some blue umbrella troops. Still, he heroically saves Zoe from Jack and cures her of her infection. Clancy Jarvis. Poor Clancy just wanted to lay low, work behind the scenes, operate the camera, and cash in on his film degree, you know? Little did he know that his innocent little gig with the internet show Sewer Gators would be his undoing. After getting the Blair Witch treatment, Clancy is forced to partake in Saw-like torture games with Lucas Baker and escape the room scenarios with Mama Marguerite until his unfortunate fiery end. Happy birthday, Clancy. Ark Thompson. Ah, damn it. Resident Evil 0 just had to mention Sheena Island. I guess that means Survivor is canon. Well, here goes. Ark is a friend of Leon who infiltrates an Umbrella base but then loses his memory. So he runs around for a couple of hours thinking he's responsible for sick child experiments before realizing who he really is and liberating the island. At least he's got a cool name. Bruce McGivern. Ark Thompson's not bad, but Bruce McGivern is an even cooler name. And he's got a story that backs it up. He's a reckless US Stratcom agent who survives a virus outbreak on the cruise liner Spencer Rain. He falls for Fong Ling, an even poorer man's Ada Wong, and stops bad guy Morpheus Duval, another cool name, from nuking the United States with virus missiles? Okay, maybe it's not that cool, but it's still better than Survivor's plot. Alright, quick shout out to the many playable characters in both of the Outbreak titles. They're all pretty underdeveloped, so I'm not going to go in depth with them here, but here's looking at you, Kevin, George, Cindy, Mark, David, Alyssa, Yoko, and Jim. We know you exist, and you're all super rad. So yeah, some of these Resident Evil characters are more basic than others, but they all get a chance in the spotlight. And we want to give your suggestions a chance in the spotlight. What ever do you want to see next? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for similar videos and more Resident Evil content. I've been your host, Dan. Thank you for watching.